Sorry about the melodramatic clickbait title. It is true, I would appreciate help, but I'm not desperate. I'll be okay. If you've enjoyed this podcast or my polarization-related work, I appreciate you giving this a listen. Apart from helping me, you might like listening to this to hear what I've been working on, how successful the podcast and my books have been, that kind of thing. There might be some interesting behind-the-scenes information that might be relevant to you. By the way, this is the People Who Read People podcast with me, Zachary Elwood. This is a podcast about understanding human behavior and understanding our own behavior too. You can learn more about it and sign up for a premium subscription at peoplewhoreadpeople.com. If you want to contact me about anything I mentioned in this episode, use the contact form on my podcast site. Okay, first, the podcast. I'm thinking about stopping work almost entirely on it. It just takes up a lot of my time for very little reward these days. These days, I get between 25,000 and 30,000 total downloads a month across all episodes. That's down from a peak in late 2022 of about 40,000. I had a pretty nice upswing there for a while in audience terms, but then it fizzled out, which I kind of understand. It was related, I think, to, for one, doing episodes less frequently, and for another thing, tackling political polarization-related issues, which I don't think resonated with a lot of the audience who were more interested in behavior and psychology type things. For most of the podcast's existence, I've made almost no money. A few months ago, I switched to a different podcast hosting platform with more automated ads than the platform I left. So now via the automated ads, I typically will make about $200 to $300 per month. But that's only if I consistently release episodes like 3 or 4 times a month. Getting new episodes out is quite a time suck, with the time spent researching ideas and potential guests and question ideas, writing introductions, doing editing work, and such. For a while, I was thinking the podcast might be worth it in more indirect ways, like helping me promote my books and such, but I don't think it's really helped me much in that regard either. So if you did want to encourage me to keep doing the podcast, you could think about ways to help me get the audience numbers up. One thing you might do is share episodes you've enjoyed with people on social media. Another thing you might do is, if you have an idea for a very fitting advertiser who might pay me a decent amount to reach my audience, I'm open to ideas. Another thing you could do is leave reviews and ratings for the podcast on platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Theoretically, if I say doubled my audience in the next few months, I might have a bit more incentive to keep it going. Regarding my political polarization-related work, I'm also going to be scaling that back substantially, maybe almost entirely. If you want to know more about that work, you can learn about it at american-anger.com. For almost the whole last year, I've been working full-time on depolarization-related work. In October of last year, I started working with the organization Starts With Us. I've been writing their newsletter and some blog posts and helping with social media posts. Some other things too. I also released my book, How Contempt Destroys Democracy, in April of this year, and I've spent a good amount of time this year trying to promote my books. That included getting some op-eds out. I've had an op-ed in Newsweek. I've had an op-ed in The Hill. Long story short, these efforts haven't panned out well for me financially or otherwise. I've put a lot of effort in and a substantial investment of money for not much reward. This isn't entirely surprising. It's the nature of the work, but still it's been disheartening in a few ways. For one thing, I was expecting more of a response to my books. I've had very few people leave me Amazon reviews, and that's not great in terms of how the Amazon algorithm treats books. I was just expecting to do a little bit better in that regard. I've spent more than $10,000 for when it comes to writing and publishing related services and promoting the books. And that's not even getting into the substantial pay cut I took working for the nonprofit over the last year. Not to sound to woe is me, but just to say similar to the podcast, it's been a lot of effort for not much payoff, and I just think I need to start focusing more on myself. For things you can do to help me in that regard, some ideas would be, if you like my polarization related work, you could buy my books and leave them reviews on Amazon, or if you don't do Amazon or can't do it, you could leave them on Goodreads. You could promote my books to people you know, or maybe even buy them for people as a gift. I'm also currently regretting having gone the self-publishing route for these books. I was in a hurry to get them out into the world, and it may have been the best choice, and I'm not really sure, but in any case, now I wish I'd spent some time pursuing a major publisher. So if you do happen to know any influential literary agents or have a connection at a major publisher who might be interested in such things, I'd appreciate hearing any information you have on that front. Related to scaling back efforts on the polarization related front, I'm also currently in the market for a technical writing job. My day job for most of the past decade has been technical writing. In other words, writing documentation, aka docs. I worked for 7.5 years. I worked for the software company New Relic, which I left last year to work at the nonprofit. My final role there was lead technical writer, which was above the senior role. So if you know of a good and well-paying tech writing job, I'd love to hear any opportunities. That's pretty much it. If you listen to the whole thing, thank you for your interest, and thanks for listening to the podcast. All right, take care.
Music by Small Skies.